Welcome to the Something About Sandy Film Fight Podcast with your host, Ash Baker.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of a brand new podcast series, the Something About Sandy Film Fight Podcast. Each week I'll be taking a film theme and looking at the best and worst examples of it to compare and contrast. I'm your host Ash Baker and let's get into it, shall we? So first up, this week's theme is
There's Something About Sandy.
So this is kind of the epitome of what I'm trying to do with this podcast really. As I'm sure most of you know, if you're film fans, Sandra Bullock in 2009 won an Oscar for Best Actress in the same week that she won a Razzie for Worst Actress. And this is what I'm trying to do in terms of looking at the best and worst example of something and comparing and contrasting and seeing what we think. So yeah, this felt right to be the first episode in the series of podcasts. For those of you who don't know, the Razzie was won for a film called All About Steve, which is the first film that I'll be talking about. And then the Oscar was won for a film called The Blind Side, which is the second film. Let me know what you think after I've gone through them, and just to warn you that the following reviews may contain spoilers. So first up, it's All About Steve, and here are the facts.
Year of release.
2009.
Directed by,
Phil Trail.
starring,
Sandra Bullock and Bradley Cooper.
current Rotten Tomatoes rating,
6%.
worldwide box office takings,
$40 million.
where to watch.
Currently it's not available on streaming platforms in the UK, but can be rented from places like Amazon Prime and YouTube movies and things like that. So, All About Steve tells the tale of ultra-kooky cruciverbalist Mary, played by Sandra Bullock, as she chases the unsuspecting cameraman Steve, played by Bradley Cooper. And full disclosure, I felt like this was the sort of film that might be better with a few wines, either to laugh along with it or to numb the pain of it being bad, so that may have impacted my view of this film, but we'll see. The first thing to sort of note is the film is really at pains to express just how kooky she is. I mean, these red boots she's got, everyone is falling over themselves to describe how kooky they are, and they're obsessed with them. And they're interesting looking boots, but they went on about them a little too long. And, I mean, the kookiest thing, obviously, of all is that she's a crossword setter or a cruciverbalist. And it's like, they obviously wanted her to work in a newspaper, and they thought, what's the geekiest job we can think of? I know. Who sets the crosswords? And she's there, like, drawing her own crossword grids. And I'm like, this is 2009, surely there's computer programs. And she does one a week. And it just seems completely ridiculous. I think the kids at the careers fair say it best, like, how do you pay your rent? You know, I don't understand how she can actually earn a living by just doing one a week. But it's sort of, the film isn't really interested in sort of answering any of those questions. And that's sort of something that we see throughout the film, in that it isn't really interested in delving deeper than the surface in sort of any way. And yeah, by the way, who invites a crossword setter to a careers day anyway? It's just, you know, so there's a few things that are just like, don't pick at that thread, because the whole film will just unravel in your hands. So yeah, along with the kooky as well, she's told to be normal early on, and she has to write it down. And it's kind of like, come on, this is really lazy. And you know what? Do you think maybe the moral of the story is, why would you want to be normal and just be yourself? Stroke your chin, This is something that's said by a deaf child at the end, sign language. And it's like, the kids in this film seem to have all of the lines that just explain exactly what the film wants you to think at each point. So it's sort of quite on the nose. I mean, it's interesting because I sort of felt sorry for the main character, but not in a sort of a heartwarming, charming way. Just that she was completely pathetic. And, it's like there's a scene where she's getting on a bus and then the bus just drives off because she keeps talking all the time. And it's like, that's just mean. It's not funny. It's mean. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place, which I suppose isn't a surprise to anyone. But what was a bit of a surprise is that I did actually laugh. I counted at least 3 laughs. So, the problem was that it sort of came up with a joke and you laugh at the joke, but then it just carried on and on and on and on with the joke. So it's a bit like, I finished laughing a few minutes ago. Can we move on with the film now? And I think as well, it sort of knows what sort of film it is. It doesn't take itself too seriously. There's a lot of it that's pretty tongue-in-cheek. So like when Bradley Cooper first appears, is that they play this really sexy saxophone music. So the film is essentially just going, whoa, look at that bit of man eye candy, whoa. And he inexplicably is topless at one point. And I think it's just purely because it's like, look, we've got this fit guy. Can we just sort of have him with his top off for a bit? Which, he's nice to look at, so I'm not sort of necessarily complaining. A lot of the music in the film actually is really on the nose. Playing I Will Follow Him when she's following him around the place. And there was the Jaws theme when she was like appearing around the media tent and he's trying to hide and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of no great surprise that the film is telling you exactly what to feel and what to think at all times. I kind of feel, in terms of the performance, I think it was a bit harsh on Sandra Bullock to give her the worst performance. I kind of feel it's the script, which is the real problem, because the script is pretty flimsy. I think it was sort of back of a fag packet in the pub type of thing. I read somewhere that it was on the blacklist of like great scripts yet to be made, and I'm like, really? I'm not so sure about that. I think her performance is actually okay based on the script. However, I did see that she was credited as a producer, so I don't think she can get away completely scot-free with that. But in terms of the performances, Bradley Cooper doesn't really do much or add much, but he's basically there to be eye candy, so I don't think he kind of really needs to. Thomas Hayden Church does a serviceable job as the arrogant newsreader. He had a couple of laughs. Ken Jeong is in it, sort of reuniting with Bradley Cooper from Hangover, and it kind of freaked me out a bit because whenever I see Ken Jeong, I'm a big fan of Community and other things he's been in. He's just sort of like, dials it all the way up to 11. And in this, he actually toned it back, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit, if I'm honest. But all in all, the film wasn't as bad as advertised, I don't think. It kind of knew what sort of film it was. It didn't take itself too seriously, and to be honest, it was far less cynical than some rom-coms I've seen. So yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not amazing, but perhaps we should judge the film by its own method of judging things. So Sandra Bullock in a voiceover says, "If life is like a crossword puzzle, then its worth, its greatness, should be judged in the same way. Is it solvable? Is it entertaining? Does it sparkle?" So is it solvable? Absolutely, this film is really by the numbers, so it's absolutely solvable. Is it entertaining? It's mildly diverting, so yeah, I guess so. Does it sparkle? To be fair, there are a lot of very pretty people in this film, so I guess it does. So by the film's own logic, it's great. But as I say, in all seriousness, it was okay and it passed the time. And as I say, I was on the wine, so I think that probably made me enjoy it a bit more. But I wouldn't run away from it, but I wouldn't necessarily seek it out. My official rating for this film is...
Come on, it's not that bad.
Next up, we have The Blind Side, and here are the facts.
Year of release.
2009.
Directed by...
John Lee Hancock.
Starring...
Sandra Bullock, Tim McGraw and Quentin Aaron.
Current Rotten Tomatoes rating.
66%.
Worldwide box office takings.
$309 million.
Where to watch.
This is also currently not on streaming platforms in the UK, but can be rented from the same places. So The Blind Side tells the story of how Michael Oher overcame a tough upbringing in Memphis to become a huge American football star, all thanks to a nice white family in a nice part of town. So, my cynical hackles were raised at the start because there's a pretty pretentious voiceover from Sandra Bullock, just ramming home this idea that American football is an allegory for life, which is a theme that they come back to quite a lot in this film. So yeah, and I was a little worried at first as well about Sandra Bullock's accent, this southern accent she's got, because there was a couple of words that I thought, oh no, is that going to be annoying? But to be fair, actually, after the first minute, it was fine. So yeah, and I think her performance in general is pretty good. Obviously, it's Oscar-winning good. As this southern housewife who gets her way and kind of fights the system and whatever. I'm not convinced it was Oscar-worthy. I kind of wonder whether it's about sports, it's a real life drama. It's just sort of, I wonder if it just ticked a lot of Oscar boxes. And like I say, it's good performance. You sort of really root for her, but is it Oscar worthy? I'm not sure. But I mean, I don't begrudge her an Oscar at all, but I'm just not convinced that this was the film that should have got it. But anyway, I think her and Tim McGraw play a believable couple. There's some sort of nice scenes where they're talking and they're sort of supporting each other. And the family are actually sort of really pleasant to spend time with. I was a bit worried that the younger brother, this SJ, would be really annoying. He's sort of one of those annoying younger brothers. You just say, oh man. But actually, he came across as quite charming. So again, that was another fear that went unfounded, thankfully. I think Quinton Aaron, who plays Michael Ower, he plays the sort of the role of the gentle giant quite well, I think. There's lots of kind of nuanced eye acting and sort of slight smiles and things for most of the film. So yeah, I think he does that quite well. But yeah, so the performances of the main family were pretty good, I think. I suppose one of the issues of this film is that past that main family, the other characters, the film just isn't really interested in developing any of the characters at all. They're pretty two-dimensional. There's a sort of a clique of ladies what lunch, these kind of privileged white, housewives with loads of jewellery and nice outfits and things. And they're sort of there to give us the privileged white view of things. And they're not racist, but they're just kind of, I don't know why you're bothering doing that. And they're more interested in kind of the nice salads that they're having and the jewellery and stuff than anything else, anything kind of meaningful. There's these teachers who, I mean, there's a lot of them who just sort of bend over backwards to give him special treatment, and it's not really we're not really sure why. But there is one teacher, he's so mean. This teacher, he's such a meanie pants because he gives him accurate grades and doesn't want to give him special treatment. But hey, guess what? Even he comes round in the end. It's that sort of film. There's the gangbangers who in the hood, who get about 5 minutes of screen time just to sort of show where Michael's come from. But again, the film isn't really interested in them. There's the Michael's birth mother who is just sort of picked up and dropped off when the film kind of needs her. I think the main issue with this film, though, is that it just didn't feel like there was enough conflict in the film in terms of everything. They just sort of seemed to sail through. There's a 5-minute conversation at the beginning where they managed to get him into this super exclusive white high school, and obviously it's they're thinking he's big, he'll be good at football, but it just feels like there's there'd be a bit more of an argument, or there'd be a few more things that it wouldn't just be as easy as that. And I think everything kind of happens quite easily for them, and I kind of feel Sandra Bullock's character just sort of takes him in and instantly defends him. It would have been interesting to see her kind of a bit more conflicted, sort of, because I assume that's why her privileged friends are there at the beginning to sort of provide that conflict. But it would have been interesting to see her, just like them at the beginning, but then over the course of the film sort of grow and mature, and then at the end become the fully formed person that she is. It wasn't sort of necessarily bad to watch. I think it probably could have given a bit more. There is a bit of conflict in the film. At the end, there's this woman, she's mean. She's so mean. She's a meanie pants. But even that is kind of resolved pretty quickly. And I think it's a shame because it hinted at sort of quite an interesting debate about how honourable the family's intentions were. And it's like, because you're with them throughout the film, you sort of feel that they are honourable. But then it's like, it could have played on that idea a bit more. But it wasn't really interested in delving into that anymore. Yeah, it sort of resolved that pretty quickly, I think. Yeah, so, I mean, overall, the film is sort of pretty by the numbers, I guess. It sort of didn't want to delve too deep into any of the characters or into any of the sort of conflict or anything. The music, helps with that. So it's sort of very, there's nice uplifting music when he's progressing through learning, and there's quirky music when he struggles at his first practice, and so on. And I wouldn't go as far to call this hagiography, but it feels very deferential to the people involved because, as I mentioned, that they're all real people. I'm not sure if they actually had a hand in making the film, but it kind of felt like they did. It felt like the approved story. But overall, I enjoyed it. I think it was mainly the performances of the main family that really set it apart. So in that respect, the performances do deserve to be highlighted. And you're sort of really rooting for the characters. It even made me interested in American football, which I don't have a clue about American football. So that was quite a sort of an interesting skill to do, I think. But yeah, I think it would have been better served by being a bit grittier and allowing the characters to experience more kind of conflict and more kind of a character arc before achieving the goals. Overall, my official rating is
a warm, cuddly hug of a movie.
So before we get to the final summary of the two, I'm going to play a little game of Top Trumps first.
Top trumps, top trumps, top trumps, top trumps, top trumps.
So the first category is
Top boots.
So obviously in All About Steve, they are obsessed with these red calf-length boots. So that's a 1 in their column. In The Blind Side, I don't think I really saw any boots. There was some focus on Michael's trainers, but they were not as good as these boots. So All About Steve wins the boots round. The next category,
Badass lines, or baddies getting their comeuppance.
All About Steve had 1, maybe 2 of those, but Blindside easily beat that with 4 to 5, especially Sandra Bullock just sort of saying, hey, he's my son, hands off, and all this stuff. So Blindside wins the Badass Lines category. Next category,
Pretty people.
All About Steve, I counted at least 5 very pretty people, very pleasing on the eye. Blindside, I only counted 2, Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw. So All About Steve wins that category. Next category is
Gratuitous cleavage shots.
And this includes Bradley Cooper being topless for some inexplicable reason. So All About Steve, I counted 5. This is maybe the wine coming out. And Blindside, I didn't see any, surprisingly enough. So again, All About Steve wins that category. Next category.
Music telling you exactly how to feel at every moment.
I think there was actually too many to count in both, so I'm just calling that a draw. And the final category is
using the film's subject, i.e. crosswords or football, as an allegory for life.
I lost count of this as well, but I think The Blind Side just edged it.
And the winner is...
So all in all, after that Top Trumps, I have it as 3 categories to All About Steve and 2 for The Blind Side. So All About Steve is the winner. So, final summary. It's interesting to see Sandra Bullock in 2 completely different roles back to back. And, say what you like about All About Steve, but it does kind of show that she has range, at least, I think it was unnecessarily harsh to call her the worst performer of the year. I feel like I've seen worse performances. Maybe not in 2009, but yeah, I thought that was a bit harsh. So yeah, I was surprised that I actually found things to like about the film. And I think what surprised me more, actually, is the similarities between the 2 films. Both orchestrate exactly how you're supposed to be feeling at every moment with the music. And neither film sort of seemed particularly interested in developing the characters beyond surface level. I suppose Blindside did a bit more for the main family, but all the other ones, they were only there to sort of serve the story. They weren't really there to develop at all. All in all, look, clearly The Blind Side is a better film. I'm not going to sort of sit here and try and say that All About Steve should be reassessed. But The Blind Side, it's the performances really that keep you on side, because I think in other hands it could have easily become a bit cheesy and a bit annoying, but the performances really keep you on side. And All About Steve, it knew exactly what it was, and it was sort of quite unashamedly went about its business. And as I said, I've seen much worse, much more cynical kind of cash grabs. So I don't think it was that bad, but maybe I wouldn't necessarily kind of recommend to seek it out. But worth watching both, I think. But Blindside is clearly the better film, so I'm not going to sit here and try and lie to you. So that's it for this week. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with what I've said? Strongly disagree? I'd also love to hear your feedback on the podcast itself. If you have any ideas for film themes or podcast features or whatever, just drop me a line. The email is somethingaboutsandifilmpod@gmail.com, and it's sasfilmpod on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And it'll also be great if you could leave a review and subscribe to the podcast on your chosen podcast provider. So thanks for listening, and a special thanks goes to Joe Baker for all the music and Alison Moore for the voiceover work. See you next time on the Something About Sandy Film Fight podcast.